The movie begins. In the Ura Valley of Bhutan in 1995, 4 friends, Greg, Paul, Fiona, and Ruthie, were hiking up a mountain. They were on a quest to find a special place they had been searching for. The story begins with a caption that says, Day 1. During their hike, Paul, after blowing into what looks like a flute, hears a mysterious sound calling to him. He follows the sound and accidentally falls into a deep crack in the ground. Greg rushes to rescue him and discovers Paul sitting near a strange skeleton. Paul is muttering to himself, seemingly unaware of his surroundings. The skeleton appears to move slightly, which startles Greg. Fortunately, Greg manages to pull Paul out of the crevice just in time. After this unsettling experience, the friends decide to seek refuge in a nearby empty house that they discover nearby. They hope that staying there will provide safety and a chance to recover from the shock of what they've just encountered. On the second day, Paul doesn't seem to improve. He remains lying quietly, not speaking or moving much. Meanwhile, outside the house, Ruthie notices a figure through the swirling snowstorm. Startled, she steps back, and to her surprise, the figure mimics her steps and then starts rushing towards her. Frightened, Ruthie dashes back into the house and slams the door shut. She hears pounding on the door but refuses to open it until she hears Greg and Fiona's voices. When they come inside, Ruthie asks them if they saw or heard anyone outside, but they say they didn't notice anything unusual. Later, as Ruthie tries to sleep, she senses movement and realizes Paul is whispering something near her ear. On day 3, Greg, Fiona, Ruthie, and Paul set out again on their hike in the mountains. Ruthie seems distant and confused at first. Suddenly, she pulls out a knife and attacks Greg and Fiona, stabbing them. Shockingly, she then throws their bodies over the edge of a cliff before jumping off herself. Paul, left alone, continues to blow into the flute-like instrument, seemingly unaffected by the tragic events. In Missouri in 2018, James LaSombra, a former detective, now works in a security store. He often hears a voice in his head asking him, "Where were you?" This voice has haunted him ever since his wife Allison and son Henry died in a car crash a year ago. James keeps a watchful eye on Amanda Quayle, a teenager whose mother Nora is his friend. Amanda and Nora haven't been close since Amanda's father passed away, so Amanda sees James as a surrogate father figure. Shortly after Amanda disappears, Nora contacts James for assistance. Together they search for Amanda and discover a disturbing message scrawled on her mirror in blood. "The empty man made me do it." When the official detectives take charge of the investigation, James feels compelled to conduct his own inquiries into Amanda's disappearance and the ominous message left behind. James goes to the high school to find Amanda's friend, Devara Walsh. She gets into his car and recounts a night a few days ago when Amanda, along with friends Brandon, Julianne, Meyer, Lisa, and Duncan, walked across a nearby bridge. Amanda had decided to summon the Empty Man, a spooky legend that supposedly appears 3 days after being summoned. According to Devara, on the first day after summoning him, they heard strange calls. On the second day, they felt his presence around them. And on the third day, he was said to find them. The teens followed tradition by blowing into a bottle during the summoning. Devara also recalls seeing Amanda whisper something into Brandon's ear, similar to what Paul did to Ruthie in Bhutan. Before leaving James's car, Devara thinks she spots the Empty Man lurking in the nearby woods. Later that night, James returns to the bridge to investigate further into Amanda's disappearance. He discovers the bottle the group used and decides to blow into it himself. Then, he descends a ladder leading beneath the bridge, where he makes a chilling discovery. The bodies of Brandon, Julianne, Meyer, Lisa, and Duncan hanging there. The same unsettling message written in blood from Amanda's mirror is also found nearby. Meanwhile, Devara goes to a spa. In the foggy atmosphere, she is suddenly attacked by the Empty Man, who stabs her with a pair of scissors. The attack is made to look like she harmed herself. Despite the official ruling of suicide, James suspects there's more to the story. He finds the circumstances surrounding Devara's death too strange and unnatural to simply accept. Now, on day 1 of his investigation, James delves deeper into the origins of the EmptyMan. He researches a cult known as the Pontifex Institute, which has beliefs that trace back to places like Bhutan. This connection helps James understand how the four friends encountered the EmptyMan there. James visits the Institute's headquarters, where he witnesses its leader, Arthur Parsons, addressing a large gathering of people. After the speech, Parsons speaks with James privately. He mentions the EmptyMan as an entity that grants his followers their deepest desires, but only if they obey his commands. On day 2 of his investigation, James begins to shadow individuals connected to the Pontifex Institute. His pursuit leads him to a hospital where he discovers an older Paul, now in a vegetative state. Curiously, people entering Paul's room seem to bow and chant as if paying homage to him. Back at the precinct, other detectives scold James for interfering in the case, reminding him that he's retired. Undeterred, James continues his own inquiries. Later, he visits Nora, who remains deeply concerned about her missing daughter. James asks Nora if Amanda knew about their relationship, implying they might have been romantically involved. Nora denies this, saying Amanda had no knowledge of any connection between them. James follows a lead into the woods, where he encounters a startling sight. The entire cult dressed in hoods resembling the EmptyMan. They slowly approach him step by step, their movements unnerving him. As they draw closer, James realizes they intend to harm him. In a panic, James bolts towards his car, chased by the hooded cult members. He manages to escape just in time, driving away from the menacing scene. On day 3, James finally locates Amanda, but she appears to be under the control of the cult and the EmptyMan. She tells James that the EmptyMan uses people who feel empty inside as vessels to communicate his messages. Amanda begins to repeat haunting phrases to James, asking him, "Where were you?" This forces James to confront the painful memories that have haunted him since the night his wife Allison and son Henry died in a car accident. He confesses to Amanda that he was having an affair with Nora on that fateful night, and he blames himself for not being there to protect his family. This revelation weighs heavily on James, as he realizes how deeply his actions have impacted his life and those around him. James, now overwhelmed by despair and manipulated by the cult's influence, enters the hospital where Paul lies in a vegetative state. In a disturbing act, James empties his gun into Paul's head. The doctors and nurses attending to Paul, all members of the cult, witness this brutal act and see James as the embodiment of their new EmptyMan. James's actions mark a tragic turning point where he succumbs completely to the darkness surrounding the EmptyMan, losing his own consciousness and humanity in the process. Which movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching.